Okay, this is block one of the 3 different hearts I'm going to show you how to make today. All of them are going to be scrappy. So what I've done is I sewed together a bunch of random purples. I've trimmed this down to 2.5 by 4.5, and you'll need 2 of these. You'll also need 2 squares that are 2.5 inch square and 4 1.5 inch square. With these background fabrics, what you'll need to do is turn them over so that you have the wrong side facing up and draw a line corner to corner. And the same with these small 1.5 inch squares. We're going to be doing corner to corner. And then on here, these will actually be sewn from corner to corner like this, and they'll become the corners of the heart. So I'm going to just go ahead and draw these, and then I'll be right back. Okay, I'm just showing you I've drawn on the corners, corner to corner. These are the wrong sides facing up, so they're pretty sides together. This is kind of a scrappy block, so some of them might be a little bit different than the others. So what I wanted to quickly show you was I'm going to do these corner ones first, and because pinning some of these smaller blocks can be a challenge, we are sewing on the bias, so it's really important to try and keep them in place. I've got 2 different kinds of glue that you can use. These are what I use. I have an Elmer's, it's called a washable school glue stick in disappearing purple. I like the disappearing purple because then I know where I put the glue. You do have to be careful of this if you're using it in an area that's going to stay in the finished product, if that makes sense. So what I do is I actually use it in an area where the fabric's going to get cut off, and there's smaller pieces that I know I'm going to be throwing away. I also use them for doing paper piecing. So what I do is I'm actually just going to do it in the corner here because this is going to be cut off. And then what you do is you just line it up. Oops. Like that. And just press it down. Then you just wait a little bit. I will still put a pin over here and probably one here, but this just helps it from moving this way. And then on the other one, I would do the same thing. Some people also use the liquid Elmer's glue, which is pretty much the same idea. The important thing is they both come out in the laundry so they don't stay in your finished product. This one you just do little tiny dabs. I do have a smaller way of distributing this, but I just want to show you. So just little tiny dabs. The good thing about the clear one is you can actually heat set it with an iron, and then it'll stay in place longer before you go to sew it. Just gonna wipe up the residue here. So that's that one. So both of these will be ready to sew. They won't move around, and you'll end up with a better half square triangle. One thing to keep in mind when you are sewing these, you want to sew on this side of the line. So it's the side that gets trimmed away, and you'll hear the term a scant stitch, so that's what it means. So it's barely on the line, like your needle's just going to travel right here, and same on the other side. I hope you can see that. So I'm going to take these to my machine. I'm going to sew this. I'm going to put this under my iron just to press it, and then I'll quickly do a sew. Okay, just showing you that I have done these 2 corner to corner, so one here, one here. I did put a little bit of a pin in. It's nice to keep your threads overhanging the edge just so they don't become unraveled. So if you take the pin out on both sides, you'll know you've sewn it right if you flip it and the corners all meet up. So what happens next is this gets trimmed. So I'll just get a ruler. I want to be 1/4 of an inch away from the line or from the seam. This is to reduce bulk. So quickly, again, my fingers holding it in place, and I'm just gonna quickly go and trim that off. So this can go into your filler bucket. It does have glue on it, so it's not something that you're going to be able to sew with again. And then when you press this, you're going to press it this way. If you want to press the seam the other way so it's not showing on the light side, you can do that as well, whatever works for you. So again, on this side, I'll take the pin out and I'll put this over with my finger to make sure it's lining up square, which it does. Be very careful to make sure you're trimming off the correct side. Ask me how I knew that one. So again, lining up, firmly placed. And I'm just gonna quickly nip that off. And those are the first outside top corners of our heart. So what we do is we press this open, and then this part we're going to sew in the same way. So once you flip it open, you're going to see the top of the heart. And then again, this gets done with the larger pieces down at the bottom. So when they're flipped open, it forms the bottom of the heart. So I'm just going to go take care of that, and I'll be back shortly. Okay, I'm just showing you, I've done the final corner to corner stitching. Sometimes I mark it on the side where I know it's going to get cut off, so I know what side of the line to stitch on. That's just how my mind works. So again, taking pins out, and this will get folded over like this, and it lines up nicely. So that's how that will look. So this part will get cut off here, which I'll show you right now. And again, 1/4 of an inch. So if you go corner to corner, fingers over the side of the ruler to help stabilize it. And because we are cutting through a lot of seams, I like to go a bit slower. These, because there is glue here, these will end up just in the garbage. And then on this side, again, taking the pins out, double checking. If you weren't happy with how this was flipping over, this would be the time to adjust it by taking your stitches out and re-sewing it. I'm happy with this, so I'm going to trim it. Because I have this line here, I know this is the side that's going to come off. So I'm lining it up. This is my 1/4 inch here. You always want to leave an extra 1/4 inch seam. Get my fingers bracing, and then away we go. So that's done. So again, once it gets pressed, that's what it's going to look like. I really like how this is coming together. So once these are pressed, then what I'll do is I will go right sides together. So these, flip it open, and then the first heart is done. Okay, this is the first block in 3 that I'll be showing you today. This was out of scrappy fabric. So normally this would be a 2.5 by 4.5 to make where the purple is if you use one solid piece of fabric. These are all 1.5 inch squares, and these are 2.5 inch squares. The next one I will make will have 2.5 inch squares and 1.5 inch squares. Basically the same technique. but it'll have a seam here and here versus just one center one. So let me get that set up and I'll be right back. Let me introduce you to block 2 of putting together Valentine's blocks or heart blocks. This one is fairly simple. I'm using some scrap fabric that I have. You can use whatever colors you like. You can make it all from one, whatever suits you the best. The fabric is 4 insides, which are 2.5-inch squares, 2 lower, which are 2.5-inch squares. These will be your background fabrics, and 4 for the top that form the top of the heart, and these are all 1.5-inch. So again, what we're going to be doing is taking the wrong side, and we'll be making a stitching line from corner to corner. So we'll do that off camera, and then the same with the top. So these will all be flipped to the wrong side facing up, and we will be marking corner to corner. I will be using my friction pen because I think it works the best for me. You can also use a lead pencil or whatever other marking system that you like to use. First of all, what we're going to do though is we're going to sew these 4 together. So what I'll do is I'll string piece these 2, so right sides together, these 2. I will press the seams in opposite directions so that they'll nest properly, and then I'll join them in the center. Just showing you that before you join the center seam, you do need to put these 2 flips on. So I've drawn corner to corner, and again I will be sewing on the inside of this line here, and on this one I'll be sewing on the inside of this line. So I will put these down with glue, sew them, flip them, and trim them, and then the center can go together. So I'll just take care of that and I'll be right back. These inside have been sewn now. I did check to make sure when you flip them over that they meet in the corners, and on this side as well. So then it comes down to, again, making sure that you trim off the correct side. So I'll line this up. This part goes in the garbage. Turn this one around. Same thing, 1/4 inch. This goes in, that part goes in the garbage. So these will get pressed, and then you will have the center part of the heart. Once these are pressed open, then what we can do is sew the center seam together and then come back, and then these parts will go here like this. So that's what that'll look like. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions, if this isn't clear. Again, if you didn't see the other part of the video, I am using this purple, washable glue by Elmer's. Love it. Comes out in the wash, and it's very good for repositioning if you need to do that as well. The center seam has been done. Because of the brightness of this fabric, I ended up using a touch of glue to make sure I can maintain these 2 seams so that they match. Next, we're going to do the stitch and flipping for this corner, here, and here. These are both the 2.5-inch blocks that we're going to use down here. This will be the 1.5. I've marked with an X where I will be cutting off the fabric, and that makes sure that I'm sewing on the correct seams. So let me take care of that, and I'll show you how it looks like. Yes, this is upside down, just showing you that I did stitch this one corner on. I have checked. I did glue it. If you don't glue it, then you have some squares that you can use, or triangles you can put into your collection for other projects. So that goes to side. So this gets flipped over. So you want to press this first before you add the other one, because it is like an HST where you're going to have, or not an HST, like a flying goose, where you're going to have an overlapping little bit. So I'll do that. I will sew this one over here, and then we're almost done. So there you go. This is block 2 completed. Again, we're using 2.5-inch squares and 1.5-inch squares. Very easy to do. This fabric was actually from a duvet cover from IKEA that I cut up, and I used a lot of the fabric for making a temperature quilt a couple of years ago, and the leftover I keep in my stash and pull it out for doing projects like this. You've seen the dots before, and then these right here are just things that I have in my 1.5-inch square remnants. So there you go, that's block 2. Block 3 is coming up. Okay, block 3 is in our series on making the heart blocks. This one is a take on a foundation paper piece pattern, but I've broken it apart so that you can do it with traditional block construction. So what you need to start with is 3 different strips. I would say 1 inch on the minimum side, and ideally 8 inches in length. This one's a little bit wider, but that's okay. It'll just give us a little bit of extra room. Again, this is just a neat take. It's a scrappy, so mix it up and make them any colors that you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew these together here, and then I'll join this one, and then I will probably just make them even, and then I'll show you how to lay them out from there. Okay, version 3. I've strip set. I actually ended up doing 4 strips together. I want to have one that was going to be almost 3 inches wide. So based on the scraps that I had, I needed to use 4. And then what I've done is I've actually cut one section to be 2 inches deep. So that would be this one here. And this one is going to be about 4.5, 4.25 to 4.5. So what happens next is we take these, we turn this like this, and then I'm going to add a 2 by 2 inch square here, and that starts to give us our Valentine or heart look. So what I'll do is I'll sew this together and then sew this together, and then I'll show you what we do next. Next, we're going to start adding our background to give it more of a heart shape. So we're going to take 2-inch strips. They're about 2 inch by 4.5. We'll add one here. We'll press it open, and then we'll add one here, and we'll press it open. They do not have to meet in the corner, because once this gets trimmed off, it's going to be trimmed here. So if you add any other fabric here, it's just going to be a waste. So I'll just get to that, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, I've got those sewn together, and next what we need to do is we need to take this extra fabric off. This is a decision time for you. I want this to actually have a flat top, so if I just took some scraps and laid it over so you could see what I mean, I'm going to be taking the 1/8 of an inch off so it won't be pointy on the top like the other ones. If you want the points to remain, then you need to move your ruler up so that you've got a 1/4 inch from the tips here to where you trim. And then this is on the 45-degree angle. Because I want mine to be of a flatter design, I'm actually going to line this up on a 45, and then I'm going to take my ruler, make sure that the tips are sitting on the edge of the ruler when I cut it. So I think I've got it pretty good there. So taking my trusty sharp rotary cutter, I'm going to cut it along here. There we go. And next what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking measurements on this side so that overall it measures 4.5 inches wide, because the block, once it's finished, will be 4 inches. So let me take care of that and I'll be right back. Okay, a little bit more cutting here to go. What we need to do now is taking the 2 1/4 inch mark on your ruler, and where these two intersect, you want to line it up there, and you want to line it up evenly on the top where we just cut off the other fabric. And now what we're going to do is we're going to trim here. So let's do that. So that's not needed. Then we're going to flip this over, and again we're going to line this up on the even bit here, and we want 2 1/4 where this intersects. There we go. And we're going to cut this part off. So we're almost there. Now all we have left to do is to sew these corners on. So I'm going to get some fabric that's 2 inches wide. I'm going to sew it here. It'll overlap, and then I'll sew it here, and we're almost done. These are the last 2 pieces we'll add on. They are 2-inch strips. This one is 4, this one I cut to 5. They're way too long, but I would rather have too much than too little. So once this is sewn on, you can press it open or press it over, and then sew this one on, and then we'll do a final squaring up of the block, and it'll all be finished. Want to just quickly show you something before we do the final trimming. When I sewed this first bottom one on, it's getting pressed to the dark side, so it really doesn't matter. This one, it really wants to go to the light side. So what we need to do if you're using a lighter background is you want to under trim these colors that are hanging over the edge. I don't know if you can see them. So what I do is I quickly, or I gently pull the white over towards where we stitched, and then using, well, you can use a ruler. I actually freehand it. I'm just gonna take a little hair off, and I don't know if you can see that or not. And this is like back trimming. It's still hanging over a little bit, so I'll do a little bit more. You don't want to take like 1/8 of an inch or anything like this. You just want to be able to take a hair off. Here we go. So that you're not seeing the color overhanging on this white edge anymore. Because what will happen is once you start to quilt this, those threads will start showing through, and it'll just look really ugly. So now I'll go ahead and press it like this, and then we can do our final trimming. Okay, I have it all pressed. So now it comes to trimming it. This will end up as a 4-inch block. So I'm going to trim this to 4.5. If you had a square ruler, you could do it that way too. And then I'm just going to use, I think you can see that. I'm just going to use my line here to line it up here. And then go over to this side. And then over to this side. And again, using the marks here and there, I will do it at 4.5. And there we go. We have this nice scrappy quilt block. As I said, you could do this foundation paper piecing. I would find doing this a lot faster because you can pick any scraps you want, sew them together, cut them down to size, and then the rest is just some basic assembly. So stick around and I'll show you how I've used this block to make a nice wall hanging that could also be used as a pillow. So thank you very much, and as always, sew with Debbie.